This is the same thing that's happening in Iran right now, right?
In Iran.
After what happened when Mossad launched drones from within the Iranian border and they neutralized leadership and the United States flew in with stealth bombers. In Iran, Iran's on a hunt right now for Iranians.
I was reading an article 2 weeks ago on a totally separate story that had nothing to do with it, where they were talking high level about espionage and the dangers of it. And one of the things that was mentioned in there was how in 2011, 2012, I want to say, check me in the comments on that. You can probably Google this. There was like 10 to 12 people working for CIA who were executed in China, right? So blatantly executed. It's talked about in news stories. My ass read it somewhere or whatever. And, you know, I don't remember ever hearing that at the time. I don't remember hearing that a few years after it. This was like a side mention. Wasn't even on Wikipedia or something like that. I'm sure I could find it there if I really went and looked. But like, well, Joe found it there. 2010 to 2012 killing of CIA sources in China. This wasn't like a major thing, though.
Right.
So, you know, this is just one world power of many. But like, we've seen what Russia does on UK soil on fucking security cameras, dumping polonium on guys or whatever. Like, there are places that are, as you've talked about before, brazen. I'm not saying they would do this to you. I'm not saying you're wrong and that maybe it's not worth it. But like, what if it is? You know, there has to be a percentage possibility there. Maybe it's not high, but, you know, maybe there's a 1% chance that, like, you know, I'm going to go to fucking Georgia, the country, and get murked. Yeah.
There's always a possibility. And what we have to do, all of us have to do, is decide what actions we take based on the possibilities versus the probabilities. It's worth noting, right, that with this example specifically, those sources that were killed have never been reported to be CIA officers. They've never been reported to be American citizens.
They could have been sources, meaning like people on the ground.
I don't even think could it. Well, I mean, if this is a real demonstrable thing, which I'm not allowed to talk about one way or the other, right? Because it's CIA specific. But a source in common vernacular in the espionage world, a source is usually a national of that target country. So this means however many Chinese people were killed. And those Chinese people were committing, according to the Chinese government, espionage, which is punishable by death.
Yeah, this said, and again, you can't comment on this, so I'm just going to say this part here just for semantics. This says casualties 30 to plus killed or captured, and then it talks about specifically 18 to 20 sources were killed. Now, casualties includes people that aren't killed and people that are
hurt, right?
But, you know, what I was reading was they talked about 10 to 12 people working for CIA who were killed, and the way that it was, I'm going to go back and look at that afterwards. I'll find that article. The way it was stated, my mind did not go to sources, whereas the full number here, 30 plus, this would absolutely, there's no way there were 30 case officers killed in China in a 2-year period. That's like, there's no way that happened. But like, this would absolutely include what you're talking about, which is that there's a high proportion of it where it is just people on the ground who, you know.
This is the same thing that's happening in Iran right now, right?
In Iran.
After what happened when Mossad launched drones from within the Iranian border and they neutralized leadership and the United States flew in with stealth bombers. In Iran, Iran's on a hunt right now for Iranians who they believe are sources of information from Mossad. And I think if you look in the last 45 days, you're going to find dozens, if not more, that were at least arrested and possibly executed.
Probably all headed that way, for sure.
All headed that way, yeah. But I mean, what are they actually letting the headlines know? What are they sharing right now? I don't know.
Yeah, those guys are probably missing some fucking fingernails and teeth.
But the whole thing is a game. Espionage is a game. And it's a game of how much value do you have and how much value do you not have? Are you valuable now or later? Are you increasing or decreasing in value? What's your strategy? What's your move? And for someone like me, who's been out, who does not have access to current secrets, I have historical knowledge only. Is it worth creating an international incident over me? If I fly my dumb ass to Ukraine to go speak to the Ukrainian government, then I'm a fucking idiot.
Yeah, that might be a problem.
If I take a trip to Taiwan and I decide to just go be a tourist in Taiwan and go visit like the anti-China shrine, yeah, that's a dumbass move, right?
Let's bring a free Hong Kong sign there too.
Like these are certain things. Go Uyghurs, right? There are some very bad ideas that would be worth an international incident, right? Because now Russia can say that they arrested a CIA officer in Ukraine, and China can say they arrested a CIA officer, with anti-Chinese sentiments in Taiwan. Those things make sense. But if I go to Hungary, does it make sense for Russia to pull me from Hungary, even though those two get along? What's the claim? A former CIA officer touring Hungary, now we have him in Russia? No, it doesn't make any sense. And it's going to piss off the United States because it's a huge violation of American citizenship.
We actually have Patton here right now, and I'm going to ask you this just because you were talking I see you nodding over there. You were talking about this just before. There's a new book that came out about Evan Gershowitz. Is that right?
Yeah, the Wall
Can you just give context here?
Yeah, so a book came out. It's called Swap, and it's basically the Evan Gershkovich story, the Wall Street Journal reporter. And it's interesting to hear you talk about this because they talk about how it's all intertwined with like Paul Whelan and Brittany Griner and kind of how the Cold War era, like spy swaps sort of emerged now, and how because the U.S. changed their policy from not negotiating to now negotiating for people, Putin was like, okay, well, let's do it. And so it's interesting to hear you discuss this because, for example, Brittany Griner, they released... when Brittany Griner got locked up, there was another guy, Paul Whelan, who was also locked up at the same time. And Biden got a lot of flack because, like, Brittany Griner was an athlete and Paul Whelan, was some white dude that was a former Marine. And Brittany Griner got out like that. And Biden took a lot of heat for that. But the reason why, and this is relevant to what you were talking about, is that Putin and the Russians said, that guy is a spy. So only if you give us a spy will we let him go.
Yeah.
But they let Brittany Griner go for Maria Butina, and that was a quick swap. And
Wasn't that Victor Boot?
Well, I think Victor Boot was who they let go for Paul Whelan, I believe. Or maybe it was Victor Boot. Oh, no, the Kenyan.
I think it was the other way around.
Yeah. So they gave up somebody for Brittany Griner, but they forced Paul to confess to being a spy, even though he wasn't in Russia. And then in return, everybody was like, oh, he's a white guy. That's why they're not giving him up. That's why Brittany Griner got the attention because Biden's a Democrat, when in reality, Russia gets a say too. And they wanted a spy in return. So I'm curious from your perspective, like, you don't think that you could kind of fall into the same sort of thing where it's like that, they require a spy. It's like, well, we got a spy now. It's just, it's pieces, right? It's leverage.
Correct. But you got to keep in mind, was Paul Whelan apprehended in Russia?
Yes. Oh, that's
the big difference.
Yeah.
That's the big difference. Is it worth creating an international incident to reach into another third country, especially a country that might be NATO or a country that might be neutral or something else, right? To seize what you need. If it's a true CIA officer, right? For example, in Shadow Cell, the operational structure that we developed, which is why Putin is doing what he's doing now, the operational structure we developed was a cleansing route. Meaning we're going to operate in one place, but we're going to actually live in a different place. And then when we travel between where we live and where we operate, we go through a third place. Mm-hmm. We do the doc swap in the third place. We change alias in the third place. We make all references of travel one or the other, binary. So either it's travel to and from our place of living or it's travel to and from our place of operating, so that no matter who reverse engineers us, they never see a connection between all three spaces.
Right.
When you've built that kind of operation, 100% it becomes worth it to palladium poison somebody in the third location, because you have no legal grounds to stand on. You have no way of dodging the international incident if you apprehend them from a third country. You're basically doing what we did to Osama bin Laden. You're invading Pakistan, an ally.
Well, they got some explaining to do.
They got in trouble for that, so you're right. So you're invading a third country to apprehend a threat that's a threat to you, but not a threat to that country, and then you have to explain it on the back end. Mm-hmm. When you have your operational outcome completed, when bin Laden's dead, who cares? Now you're like, Pakistan, we're sorry. We'll spend the next 2 years saying we're sorry, and here's a little bit of extra aid, and here's a little bit of this, and here's a little bit of that, and here's some favorable trading agreements, and you're good. But when it's something where you're caught in the act, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, that's also like the bin Laden one's kind of an extreme example.
It is.
Fucking Osama bin Laden,
Right, which matters to us.
He was living next to, maybe I'm misremembering this, tell me if I am, but he was literally living within like eyesight of their military base that's like our equivalent of fucking Fort Bragg.
Yes. I've heard the same thing.
Like, they knew he was there.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, there it is. Osama bin Laden was living in a large compound at Badabad. Pakistan, less than a mile from the Pakistan Military Academy, West Point.
So if
you will.
you're going to go into a third country to carry out an operational objective, you better have a really good reason because you know you're going to have to defend it afterwards.
That was the very first clip I ever made of you. That was the first one that went where you were talking about you being a third country so that you can go into a second country to get into the main country.
And you can clean the route the whole way, man.
Yeah.
It's just so much fun to me. Espionage is so much fun to me because it's real world chess.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.